This case ignited fierce debate, splitting public opinion into two irreconcilable camps. The question of guilt remains unresolved, echoing the divisiveness of the infamous O.J. Simpson trial. Though lengthy, the unfolding of this story grips the imagination with its twists and turns. Each detail offers clues, inviting us to seek the truth. The setting is Mougins, a quaint town in southern France. Nestled 4 miles from Cannes, Mougins perches on a hillside. To the west, a 3-story villa stands proudly, its white and gray walls sharply contrasting with red roof tiles. Within these walls, the crime took place. This villa symbolizes an elite lifestyle. Its owner, Gizlane Marcel, 65, enjoyed comfort after inheriting a sizable fortune when her husband died. Her son lived far away, rarely visiting. For almost 4 years, Gizlane lived alone here, savoring the peace of retirement. But that calm was shattered by a recent alarming event. On Monday evening, June 24, 1991, the Mougins police received a frantic call. Erica, a close friend of Gizlane, reported her missing since the previous day, with no sign of her at the villa. Fearful that something terrible had occurred, Erica begged for police help in the search. Responding swiftly, officers headed to the villa, ready to uncover the truth. At the scene, 3 worried friends awaited: Erica, Colette, and Pascal. Erica revealed the depth of her bond with Gizlane, often sharing afternoon tea. She recounted their last conversation on Sunday at 11 a.m., when Gizlane, fresh from a bath, invited her for lunch the next day. Gizlane was busy preparing for a guest, so their chat was brief. The conversation lasted barely 2 minutes. Then, at 11:30 a.m., Erica arrived at the villa as planned, ringing the doorbell to no answer. She called inside, but silence greeted her. This was unlike Gizlane, who never dropped plans without notice, even in emergencies. Unease crept in. Colette arrived soon after, recalling that she and her husband had been invited for lunch the day before at 1:30 p.m. Yet when they came, the house was empty, and their calls went unanswered. They left, pressed by other commitments. By 6 p.m., Colette's worry deepened. She returned alone, ringing the bell again, still met with silence. She waited into the night, hoping Gizlane had an urgent errand, but darkness fell with no sign. Resolving to check again the next day, Colette crossed paths with Erica. Together they climbed over the gate, peering through windows. The villa showed no obvious signs of distress. Worried Gizlane might have suffered a fall or accident inside, they contacted Pascal, who ran a security company and was also a close friend. Pascal arrived with a security officer. They found the main door locked from the inside, the key still in the lock. Inside, darkness enveloped the home. Windows were secured. The security system was disarmed. A breakfast tray lay untouched on the kitchen counter, suggesting no intruder had disturbed the scene. In Gizlane's bedroom, curtains were drawn open. The bed was unmade, with glasses and a newspaper left as if she had just risen. Yet no trace of her was found. Soon, Gizlane's private doctor, a man aged 74, joined the search. They scoured the villa thoroughly, discovering jewelry and an open handbag in the closet, but no money. Nothing else emerged. In the growing crisis, Erica called the police for further aid. Gizlane Marcel, age 65, hailed from a prosperous French family and had 1 sister. She enjoyed a privileged upbringing and excellent education. Her father was a businessman who managed several enterprises and participated in the resistance during World War II, dying in exile. In adulthood, Gizlane married and bore a son, but her first marriage was unhappy. She divorced and raised her child alone. In her youth, she was striking and admired widely. Later, she met and married a successful businessman who ran a renowned automotive equipment firm. Their life was comfortable but brief, as he soon died from severe illness. Heartbroken, Gizlane never remarried. After inheriting her husband's wealth, she became a wealthy single mother, moving with her son to Switzerland for a time. Once her son reached adulthood and left home, Gizlane returned to France, building the villa in Mougins, where she lived alone until the disappearance. Police searched the main house thoroughly, finding nothing suspicious. Outside, a small guest house caught their attention. The friends mentioned a basement beneath it, but none had entered or knew its contents. The police decided to investigate the basement. They descended an exterior staircase and came face to face with a locked metal door. Forcing the lock, they finally gained entry. Yet the door resisted opening fully, stopping abruptly as if something inside blocked it. The mystery deepened. After persistent efforts, The officers managed to widen the small gap just enough to glimpse inside. One brave officer reached through, his fingers brushing against a folding bed positioned directly behind the heavy door. The bed frame itself was blocking any chance of the door opening further. Despite attempts to move the bed, it refused to budge. Adding to the obstacle, a metal pipe and a wooden plank were wedged tightly into the corner between the door and the bed, effectively barricading the entrance. The officer persisted, reaching through again to kick the pipe and plank free. Their efforts left deep scratch marks etched into the floor, a silent testament to the struggle. Eventually, the stubborn barricades gave way. With great effort, the officer lifted one end of the folding bed and began pushing it upright, allowing the door to slowly swing open. At last, the basement door creaked ajar, revealing a pitch-black interior filled with a heavy, musty air. Feeling along the wall, an officer found and flipped the light switch. Before them stretched a narrow hallway, flanked on the eastern side by a wine cellar. They advanced cautiously down the corridor until they reached a spacious room. Inside, 8 old plastic containers were lined up, each filled with crushed stones. The room contained a clutter of miscellaneous items and a handcart. Nearby, a set of dentures lay abandoned beside the plastic containers. Scattered on the floor were 2 paper bags and a pair of large rounded scissors. The oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on everyone present. Some officers pressed further into the basement and discovered a boiler room with its door slightly ajar. Upon entering, the scene froze them in place. There, on the cold floor near the boiler, lay Gizlane Marcel, the 65-year-old homeowner, face down. Her arms were raised above her head, hands clasped together, and her legs lay slightly apart. She wore only a black and white striped bathrobe, pulled up above her waist and stained dark with blood. Her right foot remained in a slipper, while the other slipper lay discarded nearby. The grim tableau sent a shiver through all who witnessed it. The metal door was the sole entrance to this sealed basement. When police arrived, they found the door locked, with a folding bed wedged behind it, preventing any escape from within. The basement was effectively a locked chamber, trapping its occupant inside. News of this horrifying discovery shattered Ghislaine's longtime friends. They broke down in tears, describing her as a gentle soul with no enemies, someone respected and loved by all who knew her. The thought that such a nightmare could unfold in her own home was beyond belief. Forensic experts arrived one by one to begin their meticulous examination. The police scoured the basement and soon uncovered a chilling message scrawled on the white wooden door leading to the wine cellar. The message read, "Omar Matue," which translated ominously to, "Omar killed me." The letters were tilted, neat, and written clearly about 3 feet from the ground. Blood smears stained the bottom of the door, adding to the grim evidence. Near the floor, faint and barely legible letters appeared on the boiler room door. Though much harder to decipher, specialists believed these letters connected to the message on the wine cellar door, hinting at a disturbing link. Technical analysis showed the handwriting was rushed, fingers moving swiftly as the message was penned. No fingerprints could be recovered, leaving investigators unable to confirm if Ghislaine had written the words herself or if another hand was at play. The victim's body bore telltale signs of violence. Bruises covered her hands, finger joints were fractured, and the middle finger on her left hand was nearly severed. The evidence suggested a brutal struggle. Central to the investigation was the name Omar. Police discovered that Omar Raddad was not a stranger but Gizlane Marcel's gardener, a 29-year-old Moroccan national who had worked for her for some time. Erica, a close friend of Ghislaine, described Omar as straightforward and honest. She recalled him as a hard worker, trustworthy, and someone Ghislaine had complete confidence in. Erica often saw Omar when visiting Ghislaine's home. Despite his manual labor role, he always appeared neatly dressed and carried himself with a quiet dignity, leaving a positive impression. Erica found it hard to imagine someone so respectable involved in such a crime. The following day, police launched a search for Omar. Their first stop was his home, but it was empty. Neighbors informed them he had traveled with his family to Tula, more than 60 miles away, to celebrate Eid al-Adha. This major Islamic holiday involves wearing one's best clothes, attending prayers, recitations, and honoring deceased relatives. Families often host large feasts, inviting friends and kin to join in the solemn celebration. Acting on this information, officers traveled to Tula and found Omar. He was arrested on suspicion of murder, appearing shocked and unaware of the tragedy that had unfolded at his employer's home. When told about the blood-written messages in the basement, Omar expressed disbelief. He insisted he had no knowledge of what happened and vehemently denied harming Gizlane Marcel. Omar claimed the police had arrested the wrong man. Asked if Gizlane might have written the messages herself, he said he couldn't tell, as he was unable to read handwriting. The only word he recognized was his own name. Omar was the only French word he could write. He did not understand the meaning of the other words. In truth, Omar's grasp of French was limited to simple phrases and basic comprehension. Though married to a French woman, their communication was mostly nonverbal. After his arrest, language barriers forced police to find a Moroccan prisoner fluent in French to facilitate conversations with Omar. Born in 1962, Omar came from a poor Moroccan family. His father had moved to Mousson, France, seeking work and a better life. At 23, Omar followed, finally reuniting with the father he had long missed. Omar Raddad entered this world in 1962, born into poverty in Morocco. His father had already left for Mousson, France, seeking work to support the family. 59 Huzru 1338,200. Zuzru 1351,000. Born in 1962 into a poor Moroccan family, Omar Raddad followed his father to Mousson, France, at 23, seeking work and reuniting with the father he had long missed. Generous wages and comfortable lodging were part of Pascale's offer. Omar, recognizing this rare stability, dedicated himself wholeheartedly to his work, driven by gratitude for her benevolence. One ordinary day, fate intervened when Omar met a French woman. Their connection was instant and deep, blossoming into love and marriage. This union secured Omar's stay in France. Pascale, ever supportive, blessed the couple, helped them find a home, and signed an open-ended work contract with Omar. She assured him he could work for her indefinitely, a generosity Omar deeply valued. It was during this period that Gizlane Marcel visited Pascale's residence. Witnessing Omar's dedication firsthand, she sought and gained Pascale's approval to hire Omar as her gardener as well. To ease their workload, Gizlane employed Omar's wife as a housekeeper. She provided the couple with an apartment situated between her home and Pascale's, enabling Omar to efficiently manage responsibilities for both households. This arrangement secured Omar 2 sources of income. When Omar's first child was born, Pascale aided the family in renting a larger, more comfortable home in Le Cannet. Omar later told police that since beginning work in town, both employers had been unwaveringly supportive. He felt immense gratitude and believed he could only repay their kindness through hard work. To Omar, Gizlane was like a second mother. She cherished his children and often visited their home, treating them as her own family. Omar made it unequivocally clear that he could never harm Gizlane. He added that he hadn't even been down to that basement in a long time, distancing himself from the crime scene. Despite Omar's consistent denials, the evidence at the scene pointed squarely to him. Police remained convinced of his guilt, but still faced the challenge of uncovering a clear motive and additional proof. They turned to Pascale for further insight. Pascale described Omar as a dedicated and hard-working gardener. On June 23rd, the day of the crime, Omar had been at her house all day, showing no signs of unusual behavior. At the end of that day, Omar requested 2 days off, explaining he planned to celebrate Eid al-Adha in Toulon with his family. He said he had already gotten permission from Gizlane. Pascale agreed to this leave, and Omar left at the close of the workday. That evening, police questioned Omar's wife and father about their whereabouts. Omar's wife explained she had taken her father-in-law and their children to Toulon first, with Omar joining them on June 24th. She confirmed Omar stayed with the family throughout, never leaving alone or acting suspiciously. She described him as honest and hard-working, with no known enemies, insisting he would never harm his employer. Yet the timing of Omar's leave request, coinciding exactly with the crime, raised red flags. Notably, he claimed to have Ghislaine's approval before asking Pascale for time off. This detail fueled suspicion. Theoretically, Omar had the opportunity to commit the murder on June 23rd while working at Pascale's home. He could have slipped away unnoticed to Ghislaine's house, committed the crime, returned to work, and then left for Toulon the next day. This scenario suggested an attempt to fabricate an alibi. The day after his arrest, Omar appeared at an initial hearing. He claimed ignorance of the events, refusing legal counsel and remaining silent throughout the process. The following day, the prosecutor formally charged him, and Omar was detained. Every passing moment in custody felt agonizing. He had believed he secured a stable life, only to find himself ensnared in a violent murder case. He was exhausted, anxious, and yearned for his family. Yet even simple comforts were denied. Guards repeatedly took away his chair, deepening his distress. Fearful of potential violence, Omar complied with the guards' demands as best he could. 4 days after the murder, forensic analysis revealed that Gizlane's head had suffered more than 5 severe blows, inflicted with brutal force. A small, non-fatal neck wound likely came from a tool resembling scissors. Her chest and abdomen bore 10 sharp wounds, and all finger joints were broken, signs she fought desperately with her hands before death. Scratches and dirt on her limbs suggested she had been dragged. Despite numerous injuries, none caused immediate death. Her death resulted from massive blood loss. Time of death was estimated between noon and 1:30 p.m. on June 23rd. DNA tests confirmed that blood and dentures found in the basement belonged to Gizlane. Due to technological limits of the era, no other DNA was detected at the scene. Forensics suggested the killer was determined to end Gizlane's life but acted clumsily, indicating a likely first-time offender. The perpetrator's hatred toward the victim was evident, yet a glaring contradiction remained. Gizlane had treated Omar kindly and no motive was apparent. Moreover, from noon to 1:30 p.m. on June 23rd, Omar was confirmed working at Pascal's home, leaving no window for the crime. Pascal corroborated this timeline. Alternatively, if the killer wrote the message, it was unlikely to be Omar, who would not incriminate himself. This raised the possibility the true culprit intended to frame Omar, or that another individual named Omar was involved. Since only the first name appeared, it might be a coincidence. Yet this remained speculation without evidence. One officer proposed a different theory during the investigation. He contended that someone so gravely injured, near death and racked with pain, could hardly have penned such clear writing. One line was notably neat, a difficult feat for a typical 65-year-old woman. Closer inspection revealed grammatical errors inconsistent with Gizlane's education and social standing. It seemed unlikely she had authored the message, adding another layer of mystery to this perplexing case. When the police examined Gizlane Marcel's personal papers, they uncovered a pattern of frequent grammatical mistakes, particularly confusing past and present tenses. This habit made it impossible to dismiss the possibility that she herself had penned the mysterious messages. A month after the crime, a handwriting expert was called in to compare the basement inscriptions with Gizlane's known writing samples. The expert's analysis suggested that the 2 lines scrawled in the basement were indeed her handiwork. The clearer line appeared to have been written while Gizlane was kneeling, while the faint second line was penned as she lay on the ground, weakened and struggling. This grim detail hinted at her deteriorating state as she attempted to communicate. While the handwriting expert stood firm that the messages originated from Gizlane, other specialists challenged this conclusion. They pointed out that the brief endings of the letters at the scene clashed with her usual, longer strokes in other writings. This discrepancy fueled ongoing debate, leaving the question of authorship unresolved. The handwriting evidence remained a contentious and fragile thread in the investigation. With no definitive proof that Gizlane had written the messages, the investigation stalled. Meanwhile, news of her death spread rapidly, igniting fierce media competition to cover the unfolding mystery. The bizarre nature of the crime captivated the public's imagination, intensifying pressure on law enforcement. Detectives returned repeatedly to the scene, searching for overlooked clues. The basement had only one metal door for entry and exit. The placement of a folding bed, a metal pipe, and a wooden plank blocking that door suggested only someone inside the basement could have barricaded it. Investigators speculated that Gizlane might have suffered a mental breakdown. Choosing to strike then would have been reckless, making the crime more difficult. When Gizlane's body was discovered, it was covered in blood. If Omar were the assailant, he would likely have been stained as well. Yet, outside the basement, no blood traces or footprints were found, not even on the stairs leading up. This raised the chilling possibility that Gizlane herself had staged the scene. However, her family and friends swiftly rejected this theory. They painted Gizlane as a joyful woman, living a comfortable, trouble-free life, with no history of mental illness or psychological treatment. No psychiatric drugs were found in her home. Such behavior seemed impossible for her. With the case at a standstill, reporters and private detectives began their own independent investigations. Reporter Levy identified a neglected area in the basement, the wine cellar. He noticed a gap in police records that detailed every basement room except for the wine cellar's structure. This omission suggested the police had not thoroughly examined this crucial section. Levy discovered that in 1989, 2 years before the murder, Gizlane had hired a contractor to install ventilation in the cellar. 1 year later, she added 2 windows to improve airflow. Levy also highlighted that the swimming pool's filtration system was located in the basement. On the day of the crime, Gizlane wore a bathrobe and slippers, indicating she had just bathed and was likely heading to the basement to start the pool filter. Preparing for friends who might swim later, she was brutally murdered at that moment. The scenario could not have been self-inflicted. After the killing, the assailant sealed the room by blocking the door and escaped through a wine cellar window, an escape route overlooked by police until Levy's revelations. Levy's claims ignited public debate. Many found his theory plausible, while others dismissed it as conjecture based on weak evidence. Installing ventilation in a basement was common. Adding windows, however, was unusual. If Levy's theory held, the prime suspect remained Omar Raddad, the gardener, intimately familiar with the basement's layout. The question lingered. Could Omar be the killer? Omar's own account placed him working at Miss Pascal's home on the morning of June 23rd. At noon, he claimed to have ridden his motorcycle to his residence in Lacan for lunch. On his way home, he stopped at a bakery in Mousson around 12:05 to buy bread, where only one employee was reportedly on duty. After the purchase, he continued home. Between 12:15 and 12:20, he arrived home and encountered a casino owner, exchanging brief words before parting ways. By 12:40, after lunch, Omar left to return to work at Miss Pascal's, arriving around 1:30. He worked until evening. On his way home, he stopped at a public phone booth to call his wife, who had gone ahead to Toulon, telling her he would join her the next day. He then returned home to rest. Acting on Omar's timeline, police verified his bakery visit. However, the owner's records showed multiple employees working that day. When questioned, none of them recalled seeing Omar. This discrepancy raised suspicion that Omar might have fabricated his bakery stop. Next, police interviewed the casino owner Omar mentioned. The owner recalled walking with his wife that afternoon, meeting a friend and inviting him to lunch. They then shopped for groceries between 12:15 and 12:25. The owner could not clearly remember encountering Omar during this time. Omar Raddad's testimony raised immediate doubts. He barely noticed familiar faces, yet crucially, he failed to mention the casino owner's wife. The owner himself could not recall meeting Omar, suggesting this part of Omar's account might have been fabricated. Police investigators scrutinized Omar's phone records. They found a call to his wife placed at 12:51 p.m. on the day of the murder, a timeline that clashed with his version of events. Without a solid alibi and with ample opportunity, Omar remained the prime suspect. Omar insisted he never imagined being accused of murder. He claimed that had he known, he would have paid closer attention to every detail of that day, understanding the gravity of the situation. 4 months after the crime, forensic tests were performed on the clothes and shoes Omar wore on June 23rd, alongside the large scissors discovered at the scene. The results offered mixed evidence. While Omar's shoes lacked dust from the basement, his pants bore traces of plaster and fiberglass. Animal DNA was detected on the scissors. Police speculated that worn shoe soles might explain the absence of basement dust. The plaster and fiberglass on Omar's clothing could have originated in the basement, the crime scene. Yet the animal DNA on the scissors was broad enough not to exclude human origin, leaving the evidence ambiguous. Some experts argued the chemical makeup of the plaster and fiberglass did not match anything found in the basement. Fiberglass could be encountered elsewhere, making these findings inconclusive about Omar's presence there. By November 1991, Omar had been imprisoned for 5 months. In a desperate protest, he launched a hunger strike, demanding his innocence be acknowledged and his release granted. His despair culminated one night when he set fire to his prison blanket. Thankfully, a vigilant guard extinguished the flames before disaster struck. After a month without food, Omar's condition deteriorated dangerously. Fearing for his life, authorities transferred him to a hospital, allowing a rare family visit during which Omar broke down in tears. Released from his emotional restraint, and with his family's encouragement, Omar resumed eating. Days later, Ms. Pascal arrived with her daughter, son-in-law, and their maid to meet the police. They all vouched for Omar's character, describing him as a gentleman incapable of harming even an ant, let alone kill Gizlane Marcel. They pledged to help secure legal counsel to clear his name. Ms. Pascal then disclosed a startling detail. On the night of the murder, she received an anonymous call from a man with a deep, hoarse voice. He warned that the gardener had caused serious trouble and had used his own blood to write the message. The caller repeated the chilling message, deepening the mystery. Initially, Ms. Pascal dismissed it as a cruel prank, but the timing and content grew more troubling as the investigation unfolded. After the murder and Omar's arrest, Ms. Pascal grew convinced the voice was not Omar's. Yet the police met her story with skepticism. During prior in-depth questioning, she had omitted any mention of the call. Now, 6 months later, this crucial detail emerged, casting doubt on its credibility. Ms. Pascal explained she had forgotten about the call initially, a lapse attributed to her age. The police monitored phone lines of both families but found no irregular activity, only discussions about helping Omar. Despite Ms. Pascal's family's belief in Omar's innocence, the police remained unconvinced. Their investigation uncovered striking financial anomalies in Omar's bank records. Nearly 80,000 francs, close to $92,000, had been withdrawn over 2 years from Omar's account, a suspiciously large amount for a gardener on a fixed salary. Omar maintained the money was not his. It belonged to a friend doing business in France, who lacked a French bank account and used Omar's account during visits to Morocco. This friend confirmed Omar's explanation. Police also learned Omar regularly requested salary advances from his employers, Ms. Pascal and Gizlane Marcel. In June, the month of the murder, Omar had asked Gizlane Marcel for a 1,000 franc advance. A housemaid testified that Omar had requested advances from Gizlane a week before the crime. Police interrogated Ms. Pascal, who confirmed Omar requested 2 salary advances from her in June, citing rent and money for his mother in Morocco. She considered these normal and approved them without suspicion. Advances were common among employees struggling financially. However, bank records showed that in June, Omar neither sent money to his mother nor paid rent. He had requested 4 advances from both employers that month. Police theorized that Omar might have grown resentful if Gizlane Marcel refused his second advance, potentially triggering the violent crime. Notably, no cash was found in Ghislane's handbag after the murder. When questioned, Omar denied requesting an advance from Gizlane, but admitted to 2 requests from Ms. Pascal, explaining the money was intended for his mother. He had not sent any funds before his arrest. Omar insisted he never stole from Gizlane and would never stoop to petty theft. He argued that if he were guilty, he would have taken her jewelry as well. Regarding the missing cash, Omar suggested the housemaid might be responsible, recalling Gizlane mentioning a maid who frequently took valuables. Police met this claim with skepticism. During questioning, Omar inadvertently revealed a gambling habit. Police seized on this, probing further. Omar admitted to enjoying gambling but claimed he frequented the casino only a few times each month. Omar Raddad claimed he only gambled on games he had previously won, placing modest bets. Yet the investigation painted a different reality. Records showed Omar frequented the casino nearly every week, contradicting his statements. Police also noted his familiarity with bar hostesses, hinting at a more complex lifestyle. 6 months after the crime, public fascination with the case showed no signs of fading. Reporters flocked to the prison to confront Omar with questions. Throughout the interviews, he steadfastly proclaimed his innocence, refusing to admit guilt. In a desperate assertion, Omar accused the investigators of fabricating evidence and deliberately tarnishing his reputation. He expressed feelings of helplessness, unsure how to prove his innocence. The public, moved by his plight, began to sympathize with him, questioning the police's case. Critics lambasted law enforcement for detaining a man they believed was innocent, accusing them of coercing a confession 6 months after the crime. In December 1991, Omar's second bail application was denied. This refusal only intensified public dissatisfaction and debate. Support for Omar escalated as his defense lawyer challenged the police's conduct, arguing they had betrayed justice. In February 1992, Omar submitted a 3rd request for bail, hoping for release, but the court remained unconvinced. Despite persuasive arguments from his defense, the court rejected the bail. The decision hinged on new forensic evidence. Dust found on Omar's pants matched dust from the basement where the crime occurred, suggesting his presence there. Omar offered an explanation. He claimed that 2 months before the crime, Gizlane Marcel had purchased flower pots and asked him to store them in the basement. The police, however, dismissed this account as unconvincing. A glaring contradiction emerged. Omar had previously insisted he hadn't been in the basement for a long time, yet now he admitted to being there just 2 months prior. This inconsistency cast further doubt on his credibility. Meanwhile, a newspaper article surfaced in March 1992 alleging that Omar, burdened by gambling debts, had once stolen a gold necklace from his wife. The report claimed a man named Raddad sold this necklace in France in May 1990. Since Omar's last name was Raddad, suspicion fell on him. When confronted, Omar vehemently denied the accusation, calling it baseless. He described his wife as gentle and supportive, insisting she would have helped him financially if needed. He found the theft allegation absurd and unfounded. Crucially, immigration records confirmed Omar was in Morocco during May 1990, not France. This evidence disproved the article's claims and excluded him from involvement in the necklace sale. In March 1992, Omar's fourth bail application was also rejected. Before the judge, he demanded to know who had leaked such damaging and unfounded information to the press. Omar believed these rumors were deliberately spread to discredit him during the ongoing investigation. As the investigation broadened, police identified several other suspects. Among them were Omar's own brother, a chef with a history of conflict with Gizlane, a Frenchman, and a man named Gilbert. Each would be scrutinized carefully. Initially, authorities suspected Omar's brother might have been mistaken for Omar by Gizlane, due to a physical resemblance. But upon locating him, they found no likeness and confirmed he had never left Morocco, ruling him out as a suspect. The chef, known to have clashed with Gizlane, had since left his post and was employed elsewhere at the time of the crime. He presented a solid alibi, removing him from suspicion. The Frenchman had traveled to Switzerland 2 days before the murder and only returned afterward. Travel records verified his absence, excluding him from involvement. Gilbert, the last suspect, lived in a trailer near Ghislane's home and had a questionable reputation, with neighbors accusing him of petty theft. Yet, on the day of the crime, he was in Morocco visiting relatives, confirmed by his plane ticket and passport. With these alibis verified, suspicion on all other individuals was lifted. Despite this, Omar's attempts to regain his freedom continued. In April 1992, his fifth bail application was denied once more. Frustrated and desperate, Omar began a hunger strike on April 16th as a form of protest. Days later, he refused water and soon collapsed. Guards initially ignored his pleas, but he was eventually hospitalized after falling unconscious. Despite his extreme protest, no leniency was granted. 2 months later, a judge visited Omar in the hospital to inform him that his sentence would be extended by another year. This news crushed Omar's spirit and worsened his physical and mental state. His defense lawyer questioned the justice of such suffering, arguing that no conclusive evidence linked Omar to the crime. The lawyer pleaded that Omar should not endure such harsh treatment without proof of guilt. After nearly a month on hunger strike, Omar recognized his protest was futile and ceased. In March 1993, he was transferred to a prison in Nice, confined to a solitary cell designated for special prisoners, where conditions were squalid. The cell was filthy, with a clogged toilet and grimy walls. Omar's despair deepened and rage consumed him. In a desperate act, he hid a razor blade inside a piece of bread and swallowed it. He alerted the guards, but they ignored his cries until he collapsed from pain. Only then was he rushed to the hospital, where he survived the self-inflicted injury. After recovery, Omar resumed his extreme protests, refusing to yield. Once discharged, he was moved to a standard cell with better conditions. Omar spent 10 grueling months in the Nice prison. During this time, police officially closed their investigation into Gizlane Marcel's case, 3 years after her death. In January 1994, the trial began at the Nice local court, with Omar Raddad facing charges of murder. The courtroom was packed with supporters convinced of his innocence, all waiting for justice to unfold. After 9 intense days of arguments and testimonies from both sides, the verdict was delivered. Omar Raddad was found guilty of murder and sentenced to 18 years behind bars. The verdict shocked many around the world who felt Omar had been denied a fair trial. The case ignited public outrage in France and stirred the Moroccan community. Doubts lingered over the sufficiency of evidence presented. Supporters rallied, proclaiming Omar's innocence and demanding a retrial. His defense lawyer hired a private investigator to uncover new evidence and urged Omar to hold on to hope amid the storm. Just 2 weeks following the verdict in February of 1994, a coalition of 18 lawyers united to issue a striking public statement. They condemned the court's decision to convict Omar Raddad, citing a glaring lack of evidence. Their demand was clear and resolute: a retrial. This bold move triggered an immediate backlash. The Labor Union Federation fired back with a scathing article, accusing these lawyers of political grandstanding. They claimed a handful of attorneys, hungry for fame, were recklessly undermining the integrity of the judicial system. Amid this storm, a writer named Luar entered the fray. In a furious burst of creativity, he penned a book titled Omar, The Making of a Criminal, in just 3 weeks. His anger drove him to expose what he believed was a sinister setup trapping Omar. Luar suggested that Omar was not just a suspect, but a victim caught in a tangled web of deceit and possible political manipulation. He hinted at shadowy dealings lurking behind the case. Notably, Gizlane Marcel's brother-in-law was a powerful figure in the marble industry. This influential connection, Luar implied, might have swayed the trial's outcome, tipping the scales of justice unfairly against Omar. Such accusations did not go unanswered. Gizlane's family swiftly filed a defamation lawsuit against Luar. The court ruled decisively. Luar's allegations were deemed baseless, causing undue emotional harm to the family. He was convicted of defamation, ordered to publicly apologize, and compelled to pay damages. Later that same year, another author, Vergès, released a book titled Omar Matou, Histoire de Crime. His work sharply criticized the judicial system and raised the specter of racial bias influencing the case. In 1994, a woman from the town of Muro found Vergès' book and came forward. She claimed that on the day of the murder, she witnessed a truck parked near Gizlane Marcel's home. The truck's bed held wooden boards, which appeared stained with blood. The woman suspected the truck's owner might be the true culprit behind Gizlane's death. Together, Vergès and the witness held a press conference, thrusting this vital lead into the spotlight. The police acted swiftly, tracing the truck to a neighbor and painter, who regularly transported wood and red paint. Despite the suspicion, the painter had an ironclad alibi for the crime day and was officially cleared. The trail went cold. That May, a provocative article titled The Second Omar hit the press. It alleged that Gizlane knew another man named Omar, whom she had met at a local casino before her death. Police pursued this new lead, locating a second Omar living some 10 miles from Muro. However, investigation revealed no connection to Gizlane, exposing the article as a media stunt. Meanwhile, Omar Raddad, confined behind bars, repeatedly appealed to the French Supreme Court. A year later, the court upheld the trial's integrity, affirming no procedural errors had occurred and declaring the trial fair. In September, a former inmate released from Clairvaux prison stirred new controversy. He told a Moroccan newspaper that during incarceration, a fellow prisoner named Alain confessed to killing Gizlane Marcel. According to the inmate's account, Alain's girlfriend had worked as a maid at Gizlane's villa. Fired for poor performance, she allegedly enlisted Alain to exact revenge. The two supposedly broke in to steal but panicked when caught, resulting in murder. Alain was said to have written to Omar Raddad, aiming to shift suspicion onto him and mislead the investigation. The police wasted no time questioning Alain. Their findings were clear. On the day of the crime, Alain was hospitalized following a motorcycle accident. His girlfriend was present, caring for him. Alain later admitted his confession was fabricated. Hospital records confirmed his alibi. This lead, too, dissolved into nothingness. In May 1996, under the influence of Morocco's King Hassan II, French President Jacques Chirac intervened. Omar Raddad's sentence was dramatically reduced from 18 years to just 4 years and 8 months. Behind the scenes, a secret accord emerged. Morocco agreed to release a French prisoner 7 years after the case's resolution. Meanwhile, whispers surfaced of financial disputes between Gizlane Marcel and 3 Italian men who fled to Italy. Yet public attention swiftly turned to Omar's imminent release. As Omar walked free, a crowd gathered outside the prison gates, erupting in cheers. During a brief interview, Omar vowed to keep fighting for the truth, determined to uncover the real killer and reclaim his innocence. He departed in a car, flashing a defiant victory sign at the waiting cameras, appearing composed and resolute. In February 2000, Marking the 6th anniversary of Omar's conviction, the Court of Appeals ordered a reopening of the investigation. The focus? The mysterious handwriting found at the crime scene's basement. 2 handwriting experts were assigned to analyze the messages. Their report was startling. Neither message matched the victim's handwriting. In January 2001, the court ordered DNA testing on items from the scene, including a metal pipe, wooden plank, and paper bags. A month later, the tests uncovered DNA from 2 unidentified men. Yet, this revelation lacked weight and failed to overturn Omar's conviction. 11 years after the murder, author Lloyd received a mysterious call from a man identifying himself as Guy. This caller claimed to have been a driver for the Solar Temple cult, a group Gizlane Marcel was alleged to have belonged to. Guy recounted driving 3 cult members to Gizlane's house at 11:45 a.m. on June 23, 1991. The men entered the home while he waited, returning at 2:15 p.m. to pick them up. Guy speculated that the cult might have killed Gizlane over financial disputes. Lloyd passed this tip to the police, but their investigation unraveled the story. Guy was a convicted con artist with a record of blackmail and fraud. His claims were dismissed as fabrication and a desperate bid for attention. After his release, Omar Raddad authored a memoir titled Pourquoi Moi, or Why Me in English, recounting his ordeal and relentless quest for justice. In his gripping memoir, Omar Arrested lays bare the torment of a wrongful conviction. The book soared in popularity, captivating audiences and inspiring a cinematic adaptation. Within its pages, Omar reveals a critical detail about a bakery. He admits that during police questioning, he mistakenly named the wrong bakery. The truth was, he regularly visited another bakery but hadn't realized the error at the time. Curious readers soon tracked down that bakery, where staff confirmed Omar's routine visits around noon. To this day, Omar Arrested remains relentless in his quest for justice. Though granted a partial pardon and living in freedom, true peace eludes him. His every effort is focused on proving the innocence he believes was stolen from him. His fight to reopen the case never ceases. Yet many still argue the case is straightforward, convinced that Omar was the perpetrator of Gizlane Marcel's murder. Perhaps only Omar holds the key to the real truth hidden beneath layers of doubt. As this chapter closes, the question remains open. Each viewer must decide where their belief lies. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, goodbye.